There are few things in life that could convince me to travel the entire length of the Jubilee line on a cold, wet, miserable December rush hour. A press ticket to the opening night of The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime is one of those few things. It was also one of the few things that would convince me to rush home as soon as possible. Anyone who has had children of the appropriate school age in the last decade will likely already know something about the Curious Incident. Mark Haddon's book, a life-changing voyage of discovery, written in the first person by its teenage protagonist Christopher Boone, was 2003's Book of the Year. It was also ranked 19th in The Guardian's 100 Best Books of the 21st Century. Like any good book, it has also had its fair share of dissenters. Bad language and a negative view of religion has made it the 51st most banned or challenged book of the last decade, according to the ALA. Interestingly, it sits just between The Colour Purple and the Holy Bible. It has also drawn criticism for its depiction of someone living with Asperger's or autism. Haddon has remained deliberately non-specific about Christopher's disorder. Nonetheless, there is no arguing the fact that the book has entertained and educated millions of children, parents and childless adults like myself alike. In 2012, the National Theatre's stage adaptation redefined the word stage adaptation. Simon Stevens' script didn't just turn novel into narrative or description into dialogue. He retained the book's sense of stream of consciousness by making Christopher's personal tutor, Siobhan, the narrator of the book that Christopher is writing for her. It's somewhat meta, but it's key to showing us our world, but seen through Christopher's eyes. Director Marianne Elliot, along with designer Bunny Christie, contained this world in a box. Exploding with neon lighting and film projection, it magnifies even the smallest events to the scale of importance they have for Christopher. When he faces problems, it becomes a structure he uses as a coping mechanism, a place where he can draw in straight lines and count in prime numbers. Thanks also to collaboration with Frantic Assembly, the production has a physicality to it, rarely seen outside of dance pieces, which would be rarely seen. The ensemble flow together as one unit and creates stunning human tableaus that represent Chris' perception of life around him. They take him on journeys to the unknown, whether that's a journey flying through Earth's orbit or a journey fighting through London's underground. At the centre of the show originally were heart-stopping performances by Luke Treadaway as Christopher, Neve Cusack as Siobhan, and Nicola Walker and Paul Ritter as his acrimoniously separated parents, Judy and Ed. Elliot's production was adored by many, including me. This isn't just me reminiscing, it's all still relevant to the new production that kicks off at the, oh my god, but it's ugly, Troubadour Theatre in Wembley. Of course, it has a different cast. There has been some language changes. The words associated with neurodiversity and autism reflect how we speak about them today. Yet, it is quite a different theatrical experience. This production is a by numbers recreation rather than a by heart revival. I suspect the day-to-day involvement of the creative team that was still listed may have been minimal. I imagine this production was put together by the many associates that were also named in smaller type below the originators. Putting something together implies the following of a process, a structure. It is driven by logic, timings, to-do lists, things that can be ticked off. Whereas creating is something less tenable. It evolves, it is fluid, it requires emotional investment and an undeniable belief that something beautiful will be born somehow. This is an adequate assimilation of the original, but it lacks the spark and the magic that make for truly exciting theatre. The output of the original meeting of the creative minds has continued to evolve. There have been multiple touring versions performed specifically for free at school. In 2019, a new 90-minute version of the script was published that was adapted with minimal technical requirements so that it would be suitable for performances by school children in assembly halls. With this ever-growing audience in our ever-changing society comes ever more responsibility. The play has become part of general discussions on autism and neurodiversity, and it's naturally evolved into bigger topics of accessibility and diversity in entertainment. In 2017, the US touring production of The Curious Incident cast Mickey Rowe as Christopher. Rowe was the first autistic actor to play the role. And this casting has now become a directive that has been repeated in subsequent US productions and now here in this one. Playing Christopher on alternative nights are David Breeds and Connor Curran, the latter giving a perfectly acceptable performance on press night. Version, this positive representation and selection goes even further. The production is supported by Access All Areas, who, I quote, make award-winning disruptive theatre by learning disabled and autistic artists. This is the first time some of the actors have performed on stage professionally. Others are old hands, figuratively speaking, whose own lived experiences and disabilities are clear enough for them to be assigned to the characters being played. As an approach to casting, this is undoubtedly a positive step towards a more inclusive society, but with it comes questions that remain unanswered. Are we as an audience to pretend not to notice a character is, just as an example, deaf? It is something never acknowledged on stage because it is something not written or included in the character. If we do notice it and ignore it, then does that truly represent how society acts? Or should theatre and us represent an ideal society in the hope that over time the way we act in the theatre will lead to a realisation of the ideal outside? More broadly, what are we to say about a performance we would see as maybe subpar in another context, in another cast? If we make concessions, are we being patronising? If we don't take it into account, are we being cruel? Being critical of performances that others love can always ruffle feathers. Look, it comes from writing what I hope are honest and fair reviews that not everyone will agree with. But causing offence that's real by inadvertently saying the wrong thing or by something you say being taken the wrong way is never my intention or that of any other critic that I know of. However, this review does not include moments that I would ordinarily highlight. It ignores details that I think are important and you should know when you're considering where to spend the few £100 it costs to take your family to see a show. I don't know the rules. I don't like self-editing, but to avoid any possible upset, that is exactly what I've done here. It makes me feel a little uncomfortable that the result is a review that isn't my full, honest and truthful opinion. I can't help but feel that renders this review pointless. Perhaps over time, more openness will, in turn, lead to more openness. Until then, we live in a world where we have to watch our words.